Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association despised me for building a bamboo house and a beautiful pool on my private property. They tried to impose their rules and regulations on me even though I am not an HOA member. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. The first one starts like this. Living in the countryside usually means that you need to find some interesting ways to pass the time and entertain yourself. For me, I've always been into building things, and I'll admit that I've helped with quite a few barns in my time. I have a large area of land, and since I'm not a farmer like some others around here, I spent years struggling to figure out what I wanted to do with it. Then the quarantine happened and I found myself watching TV shows and YouTube videos way more often. Three particular things I was really into that I think are worth mentioning for this post, the first of which was this show called Treehouse Masters. That was a lot of episodes that really fed into my interest in building things. It made me realize that simple things can be turned into something a lot more with just some imagination and hard work. The second were YouTube videos of people building things that looked almost tribal and ancient. They were much smaller scale things like huts or even swimming pools, all from hand and a lot of hard work. The last thing were people reading stories from Reddit, which is the only reason I knew there was a place to tell my story right now. So I got an idea to build two things on my property. One would be a bamboo house in the same style as the things I would see on these amazing tree houses, just on the ground instead of in a tree, combined with a pool from what I was seeing on those videos. It was the perfect distraction from everything in the world seeming horrible and hopeless. In a perfect world, I would have just built them and gotten to make a small post about what I did and why it made me happy. Instead though, the HOA of the area felt like sticking their noses where it didn't belong. Really where it didn't belong, because I was not a member of this stupid HOA. Once I started my projects, I had their attention and they came over to try and interrogate me about what I was doing. HOA, what are you building? It looks like it's gonna be big. Me, bamboo house and a pool. She steps closer to me. HOA Karen, we didn't approve any building permits for your property. I hope you realize that you cannot just build without permission. Me, I hope you realize I'm not part of the HOA. I checked with the town and I have a permit to build this. Also, can you step back? 6 feet and all. HOA, the pandemic is in the city, not out here in the country. It doesn't matter what you think you need permission for from us or not. You're in the HOA territory and we get to say what is and is not okay for this area. Show me the blueprints. Me, how about no, and you can turn around and leave my property before I call the sheriff to remove you for trespassing. It could be questioned why I didn't just show them to her, because if she liked them the whole thing would be over with. The answer to that question that nobody actually asked yet is I knew she would complain about it even if it was something she liked just to start a fight. She hated that I was not in the HOA and would have made some crap up that she would only allow it if I joined, and then she would have had my plans, which I was not comfortable with. I resumed building, and I won't lie and say that I was prepared for how hard this project actually was gonna be. Not having any major tools or trucks or anything meant that I was doing this the old-fashioned way, and I had plenty of time at least. It took me 4 months and a ton of mistakes, but I had my bamboo house and natural pool. It also came with nearly constant harassment from the HOA to shut down my project because it was illegal. The more done it got, the more often I was getting harassed. I was actually shocked that they waited until I was totally finished before filing a lawsuit against me. With all the YouTube stories heard, I shouldn't have been shocked to find out that I was getting sued, but I was. I figured those stories had some exaggeration and the HOA would not just sue people without having an actual case against them. It turns out I was wrong though, and I retroactively apologized to everybody that I thought was just trying to make their story sound more exciting. What the videos also did was make me very curious to find out that I was being sued for. It turns out they were suing for violating HOA guidelines, illegal building, and intentionally devaluing the neighborhood for my own profit. Not a single charge made sense, and I had no worry I would be able to get everything dropped once I explained it to a lawyer. They must have known their lawsuit was weak, so they came up with a contingency plan. They snuck onto my property one day and decided to destroy what I had worked so hard on. They took a sledgehammer to the bamboo house and filled the pool with septic waste. I was devastated, and the only saving grace was that my neighbor had a camera and was able to catch them going onto my property with all this stuff. I filed a countersuit against them for the damages and filed formal charges for destruction of property. The issue with civil court, especially during the pandemic, is non-emergent things got pushed and pushed and pushed again. It took until 2022 to finally get into court about the entire issue, and that I had let my rage for the HOA sit and fester until that point. For the criminal charges, those went faster, and they were found guilty of destroying my property and trespassing. Unfortunately, those were considered such minor crimes in a time when we were trying to keep people out of prison for public safety, they did not go to jail. The HOA members involved and all got a record at least, so if they get in trouble with the law again, they will have bigger consequences. As for everything else, a judge would not give the HOA anything they were asking for in the lawsuit. I had my legal building permit to show, and I was not part of the HOA. I also did not have any real estate showings that would indicate I wanted to make the value of the area go down. On my end of the lawsuit, though, they were getting destroyed. They had to pay me a ton of money for the materials and time I spent building the creations that they chose to destroy. The money was not the end of things though, because the HOA president felt like she could still win over me by doing yet another stupid thing. During the remodeling of my bamboo house, she showed up with the sledgehammer again, thinking she could be sneaky and destroy it this time. I called the police and she was caught red-handed. This time she did end up behind bars for some time and was faced with a massive fine for once again trespassing and destruction of property. The remodel is still a work in progress, but I feel like with that last update happening only a couple weeks ago, getting the story out there could not wait. And yeah, ripe stars, if you still enjoy my stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Entitled "Neighbors stole plants from my garden and cut off roses. I made a wall of shame and embarrassed them in front of everyone." A couple little things I wanna say before I get into the meat of this story. I know usually people are talking about one neighbor in particular, but for this story it involves multiple people living on the block or surrounding blocks, so they are who I will be referring to as neighbors. Finally, a reason I am telling this story to the internet world is because in real life I've been getting sort of mixed reactions if what I did was wrong or hilarious. I decided that I might as well let all of you be the judge at the end of the story if you think my actions were funny or horribly mean. Now onto the story, which starts with my beautiful garden. Gardening has always been a hobby of mine, so when I bought a house I wanted to make sure that my yard was big enough that I could enjoy doing it. Because of that I chose and moved into a house with the most beautiful yard space you could imagine, and then I started sectioning it off. I had an area of young plants in their pots, an area with some buds that I wanted to keep safe, even an area to maybe plant some vegetables, which was a new area for me and got me pretty excited. Scattered around my whole yard though were my pride and joy, my rose bushes. Call me a cliche, but I just love having a ton of roses in my garden to look at and care for. Also, it became a talking point because whenever I saw something passing my house, they always got interested and stopped to look at it. I made a ton of small talk about my garden and even giving out some amateur advice on how to grow some things that I felt confident about. Things seemed to actually be going great, until I guess some neighbors decided that doing it themselves would just be too hard, or maybe why put in time, effort and money when they could just steal the plants from my yard when nobody was around. You can imagine how upset I got, but I don't want you to picture one day everything is there and suddenly one morning I wake up and the entire place is barren. This happened slowly over time, where I would see some potted plants missing or something clearly dug up and taken by a person. The most common thing though, that was also the most infuriating, was people clipping and taking roses. I guess just going to a nursery and buying them was too much of a hassle when they could just steal them. Now, I know which neighbors were doing this because while my house does not have a fancy camera or something, the dashboard on my car has one. Long story short, I got one after a fender bender where I could not prove I was not at fault. The good thing that came out of that was now I have the footage of the people coming into my yard and stealing from my garden. I did not want to do anything crazy like try to get them arrested for trespassing and theft or something. However, I knew it would end up being a big long thing where in the end they might get a fine at most. I did not want them to get in trouble anyway, I just wanted to get a little bit of good old-fashioned revenge. So I took the camera footage and took still image shots of the people stealing from my garden and printed them out. Usually I would choose a moment where they were most visible, or maybe even where they did not look great. If you ever randomly paused a video, you know that sometimes faces can end up looking completely ridiculous. Now, you might be thinking, why would I print out pictures of the theft if I did not want to have them arrested or anything? Instead though, I got a poster board and pasted all of the photos on it, and at the top large words saying, "Beware of garden thieves." I even sent a photo of the board to my brother, who thought it was hilarious. He did give me one piece of advice though that I thought was a good idea. He told me not to write the names of the neighbors like I wanted to, because that had the potential of causing problems, but instead I could write something else, and after thinking for a while I decided that under each picture I wrote their crime of what they stole. To finish it off, I placed it right in front of my yard so that everyone passing by could see it, and the good neighbors could be shocked how many horrible people lived nearby. As you probably could guess, it did not even take a full day before I started hearing from people that made it onto my wall of shame and did not think it was very funny. Some people told me that it was illegal to have a picture of them, while others insulted me for doing something backhanded instead of just speaking to me first. I found that ironic, since they could have spoken to me before going behind my back and destroying my plants. One neighbor did show up though with his head down and mumbled out an apology while I saw his wife waiting at the end of the sidewalk. That guy stole roses, and I'm guessing he gave them to his wife and told her that he paid for them. I decided though that I was going to keep my wall of shame up, mainly because it seemed to stop people from trying to steal, because they did not want to be the next person with an unflattering photo on my wall. One guy was really mad and said he was going to call the police on me to sue, but either never did it or they were not going to do anything about it. So now we are looping back to current day, where I am getting very mixed reactions by friends and family. Some think it is genius, while others think I went a little too far and should not have done it. Lately, a third group emerged that told me it was funny for a while, but I should really take it down now, since it's been long enough. That is the group I can understand a little, since I guess if people start stealing again, I can always make another wall of shame or just remove people after a certain amount of time. I want to know what all of you think though. Should I have done something else to get my revenge? Or was my wall of shame just what my neighbors needed in order to get the message that they could not steal from me? Either way, I would love to know what anybody thinks, and if the wall was too much, then what should I do if my garden starts getting pillaged again? Thanks for reading, and I hope you found this as entertaining as some of my friends did. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you would have been in OP situation and people constantly steal stuff from your garden, would you have done the same, or would you have gone even further? Please let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could also post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled, "Never Block My Sidewalk." My neighbor blocked the sidewalk with her car during the last 2 snowstorms. This meant one, so she claims, she did not have to shovel a path from her car to her house and instead was able to step directly on her shoveled sidewalk, which by the way she pays someone to shovel and could then walk to her front door. And number 2, she did not need to shovel the sidewalk that her car blocked because no snow landed there, and number 3, she did not shovel the sidewalk between her car and the edge of her property, about 2 feet, because once people have to walk around her car in the street, who cares about the last couple of feet? She shoveled the sidewalk until the driver's side of her car, but not the passenger's side. So my wife politely knocked on her door, explained that forcing our kids to walk around her car meant they walked in the street and that was not safe. Therefore, could she please drive her car fully into her driveway as required by the law? The law does not permit someone to block a sidewalk. We did not want to make this into a big deal, but as neighbors we asked if she could be a normal human. This woman though said no, and then claimed it was not safe for her to pull all the way into her driveway because that would force her to step in snow. My wife said that if that was a concern, she should shovel a path on her grass from her driveway to her front door. The woman then claimed she is not feeling well. My wife pointed out that she did this 2 months ago during the last snowstorm and that she goes to work daily. If she really was sick, she would be stuck in the house. Additionally, not feeling well does not preclude a person from parking in their own driveway or walking in snow. My wife said she would call the police non-emergency line. The neighbor says, "Go ahead," and she would get a doctor's note. So we did. The police said they would drive over. We did not see whether the police chatted with her or not. Either way, she got a ticket for blocking the sidewalk. She did shovel the 2 feet of sidewalk. I suspect the police did speak to her and reminded her that not shoveling a sidewalk is a fine from the building department, not the police. And if we were willing to call the police, we would probably call the building department too. We had planned on it, but they were closed on the weekend when this happened. She now pulled further up, still partially blocking the sidewalk, but at least we don't need to walk around in the street. And of course, if she does this again, we won't be asking her politely to move the car and will call the police instead. Not that entertaining, but ask us to call the police? Happy to do it. Edit: to avoid confusion and because I did not explain well, the police deal with a car that is blocking a sidewalk. The building department deals with a sidewalk that is not shoveled. We care more about blocking the sidewalk, although shoveling the snow would be nice too. She shoveled the remaining portion of the sidewalk after getting a ticket for blocking the sidewalk with her car. The next one is titled "Neighbor Gets Just Desserts." About a month ago, my neighbor, who I've always gotten along with and I am friendly with, despite her entitled behavior, told me she wants to add purple streaks to her hair. She asked my opinion because I'm a licensed cosmetologist but no longer work in the field due to health reasons. My neighbor has money and her financial situation is very comfortable and she can easily go to a salon to get her hair done. But because she is high risk and refuses to get vaccinated, she won't go to a salon. I explained the process of adding purple streaks to her hair is labor intensive and requires that she bleaches her hair first to a light yellow and then tone with a light purple color. 2 months ago, she dyed her hair black with box color. Box color is the crap you can buy retail and not professional hair color. It is crap because they will add things like metallic dyes to the color, and bleaching may literally make your hair melt off your head. Bleaching after using box color ends with questionable results, but she did not listen to me. I told her to buy a California cap, rubber cap, and pull the hair through. She wants to bleach, what bleach to buy, which volume developer, and how to pick her purple color and developer for the toner. I also told her there was no way I could do her hair. I cannot stand up long due to my condition to help her. I stressed this several times. Instead, I helped her write down everything and she seemed okay with it and said her friend was going to help her. I wished her good luck and promptly forgot all about it. I forgot until the Memorial Day weekend when she called me in a panic, screaming her hair was all messed up and I had to come to help her. I hobbled my way to her place and when I get there, I see a plastic highlighting cap in her hand, not the one I told her to buy, and the friend looking confused. Her hair was in no way messed up, they had not done anything. My entitled neighbor starts ranting how the cap was not working, how it pulls too much hair through, and how the hook to pull the hair was stabbing her head, and how I had to do her hair for her right now. She put me on the spot and kept the pressure on until I agreed to foil her hair for her. I just wanted to keep the peace as she is close to the HOA board members and my next door neighbor. I have seen what she does to people who piss her off and I did not want to cause a scene. So I stood there in a considerable amount of pain and foiled her hair and toned it. She was happy and I thought that was the end of it, so I left. She called me the next day and demanded I come back and add more highlights because she said it was not enough. By now I was pissed. The first time I did it to myself by not embarrassing her in front of her friend. This time she is most definitely taking advantage of me and acting like a brat. I went to her place again to tell her I would add a few foils, but she needed to keep an eye on the color and finish it herself. She was not happy with me at all. I again explained how I could barely stand and was having difficulty keeping my balance. She looks me dead in the face and says, "What, is this about money? I did not offer you to pay you the last time and now you're mad?" No, it is because you're selfish and don't listen. I cannot help you anymore after I finish this. I placed her foils, set the time, and left. She was complaining later in the day that her hair was all screwed up in a text. I asked for a picture and an explanation. She stated that she wanted a purple streak in the back at the bottom, so when she pulled her hair up in a ponytail, you would see the purple. Her friend bleached it. After all, it clearly was not that hard to do, right? Ha! But they did not leave it on long enough, and they turned her hair Ronald McDonald orange. I told her, sorry, I can barely stand and I cannot keep my balance. Just bleach it again until it turns light yellow, wash it, towel dry it, and then tone it. Good luck. Now she is not speaking to me anymore. I guess I should have led with the nope the first time instead of going over. No good deed goes unpunished ever. Screw her. The next one is titled Clean Up Dude. This is from a few years ago, back when I was in the wonderful BS world hellscape of retail phone sales, professionally curb stomping my morals. It was not a job that I liked, as I have morals, and I had a manager who I did not like because she had neither morals nor a work ethic. Now, for those of you who don't outright know, most retail phone sales, especially at carrier stores, are heavily commissioned. Not on what device you buy, that does not matter, but rather what services you buy. Employees typically make an extra $30 to $100 every time you add something new to your account. Managers get their bonuses based off of these metrics as well. So as a result, you can understand there is a lot of pressure over selling new services. And now the lead up to the malicious compliance. Our story begins one fateful day when an older gentleman walks into the store. My co-worker at the time, typically 2 employees in store at any given time, dislikes helping the elderly, so this guy was passed off to me. He wanted to get satellite television with us, which is typically quite a bit of commission. I work with him. His building does not allow satellite dishes to be installed, so unfortunately I could not sell it to him. Though my manager did try to force me to convince him to get it installed on a friend/neighbor's house, which I shot down. Once that penny drops, the older gentleman asks about the web version of our TV service. Not as nice a commission, but still a very important metric for my manager. I advise against this, as the customer is not at all tech savvy, does not know his own email password, and the web-based TV service was, well, it was horrible. I advise against it, but the man is pretty insistent. I go back and ask my manager if I should go through with it, since it feel like it's gonna bite me in the ass, and she basically says, do it or don't have a job. So I sell the man the service, and wouldn't you know it, it turns into a nightmare. To turn the long part of the story short, he wants to cancel the service, he forgets his password, support for the service is practically non-existent. He is getting billed for it month after month. Every time he walks in, he is angrier and angrier. Every time he walks in, I try to fix things by myself, but I literally have no back-end support for it. Every time he walks in, I end his visit by trying to go to my manager to beg her to do something managerial to help me fix this mess the poor grumpy old bugger is in. Every time I get her response, "It is your mess, you clean it up." Eventually the old dude cancels his credit card, my amazing assistant manager pulls in some favors, and the guy is made whole. And now, the malicious compliance. Remember how I mentioned that TV was a heavy metric in my job? Well, the few times my manager would leave the sanctity of her office because she would finish everything on Netflix, she would come out and practically trick people into getting services that they did not want or need. In particular, practically the exact same situation happened with an older woman whom she had sold the internet-based TV service to on a whim. She did not even go over the terms with this older woman. The older woman comes in when I'm in the store, and I immediately tune into what is happening. She has fallen into the exact same issue, being billed but completely unable to stop it. And what's worse, she did not even know that she had been set up for that service. So I go back to my manager, names have been changed. Me, "Hey Crystal, there's an older woman out here who's having the same issue as Mr. John, my customer. She said you helped her last weekend." Manager, "Oh, would you mind helping her with that? You have the experience from last time and she doesn't have any of her account info." Yeah, the account info that you made up. Me, well, it is your mess, you clean it up. Manager.
OP, it is your job to help customers.
Me, well, it's certainly not your job to sign people up for services they don't even know they have. Manager.
Well, it was free for the first couple months. I meant to cancel it.
Me, great, it sounds like it's your mess. Now go clean it up. The fallout of all of this, I would love to say that the manager was fired over this, but instead she had to spend about 3 months worth of visits with this woman, receiving a progressively worse store review every time. Eventually, the manager had to have a talk with the district manager about the reviews, and the older woman's account got fixed. Manager was on very thin ice when I quit. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.